All right, so we are going to be covering the analytical review for short stories. Yay. Well, I'm really excited. You'll notice that with the poem analytical review, I haven't done it in essay form because it gets our feet wet in having an actual conversation about imagery and elements within, in that particular case, poetry, and how it applies to making the poem work. Okay. I don't know how any other way to really do it for that, because it's really important that we have a good understanding of how poetry is working and why it does what it does. That being the case, when we work with the short story, we get to do something a little bit more fun. So, with the short story, I would like you to present to me your findings and understanding of your short story. Some of you might be going, oh, I hate PowerPoint. Well, don't worry. You can use Canva, you can use Adobe, you can use Google Slides. Any way in which you are going to create a presentation that has slides, that's going to guide us and walk us through your understanding of what the short story is saying. So, that being the case, this is pretty much, you're going to notice similar things throughout all of the assignments. You're always going to have some kind of vocabulary, and you're going to have to bold it, and you're going to have some kind of research that's going to back up your points. For this, the vocabulary terms, they come with the slides. You'll see. I'm going to walk you through that in just a second. The sources, as we did with poetry, really the only thing I need research on, the only thing you need to really have is understanding the historical and cultural context regarding this particular story. So what do you see, or what are you researching that might be influencing the poem or the short story in some way? All right. I don't want you researching the story itself. I don't give a flying flippity floop about some Joe Schmo analytical reviewer. No, I don't want that. I want you to tell me what you know about the story based on what I'm about to give you. Okay, so pretty much easy peasy. So I'm going to walk you through what each slide is going to look like to kind of help guide you. It's hard. So the reason why I have you write the poem and an essay is you can write a lot more, but in PowerPoints it's a little bit harder to try and put all the information. So I kind of break it up for you to help you, show you kind of what I'm looking for. So to first start off, we're going to have slide one. Slide one is going to have obviously your author, it's going to have the name of the story, and it's going to have the date in which it was written. You're setting us up right there. Okay, now we know who wrote what when. Ta-da! For your second and third slides, I have it broken up into multiple slides because, especially with the setting, that's what we're going to be covering, is the setting. It's going to be hard to put it all in one slide. You might even have to do it in 3, but at least 2. And the reason why I say that is because the setting is the essence of the story, especially in short stories. Remember, we talked about that. Short stories, we need to set the mood, and the mood, it's all about the setting. It's all about the location. It's the color. It's the imagery. Like, what is being used to tell us how we're supposed to feel, right? Without telling us, they show us how we're supposed to feel. So, in slides 2 and 3, you're going to want to tell us where the location is. Location could be actual, like we're in Kentucky, or we're just in a house. Like, you could, where are we? Where am I? Tell me, am I in the living room? Am I in the kitchen? Like, what's the setting? Where are we feeling? What's what? What? Okay? All right. And then with setting, I also want you to include colors, imagery. Again, when we talked about popular mechanics literally in like the first sentence already sets the mood. It's got the weather, it's got the color, we feel it. And that's what you want to look for. So what is the story saying to get us to feel a certain way? You tell me, okay? What tells us the mood? Is it the weather? Is it the smells? Is it the sounds, colors? Like, what is setting the mood? Maybe there might be certain dialogue that kind of sets the tone too. But the setting itself is what we're looking for here for that. We'll talk about the other stuff in a little bit. How do we know the tone of the story? How do you know what the tone of the story is? Tell me. And then what is it telling us about the setting? In other words, why is it important? Why is it important that the weather mattered in popular mechanics? What was the point of that setting? What's the point of the setting in Hills Like White Elephants? That kind of gives away, right? But you tell me. And again, I don't want you to research this. Don't research this shit. It doesn't, that's not what I want. I want you to tell me what you see, because that is the whole point of this. So I don't want you to go find some analytical review about the symbolism of white elephants because blah blah. What is it that you're seeing of your understanding? Not your friends, not some AI bullshit. Like, what do you see? And if you're new at this, that's okay. I just want to see where you're at and what you're finding. All right? Use the story to back up your points. That's what I want. I want you to use the story to back up your points. That's all you have to do. Super easy. And again, if you've already done one of these short stories in your other thing, do not use it. I won't count it because you've already done it. Okay, so if you did white elephants in one of the previous, I think it was the cultural and historical aspects or something like that. If you used that story before, I won't give you credit for this one because I want you to try something different. And you've already done that. Don't waste your time. Okay, don't waste your time. Okay, not to throw out the negatives out there. Okay, anyway, setting sets us up. Next on slide 4, at least slide 4, we're going to talk about the point of view. And the question is, who's the speaker of the story? Is it an I? Is it a, is there a, narrator from the distance? Like, which point of view are we looking at? And then let's see here, what is the POV? How do you know what the POV is? Obviously you'll know if it's an I, it's a first person, and so on. So tell me how you know what the point of view is. Explain to me, why is it important that this is the point of view used? Like, what could you say about the importance of this point of view? If you need to do multiple slides on this, please do. I just kind of give you a little bit of a template. So it's okay to be like fluid with this. This is just kind of in this order is what I'm looking for. Okay. Again, why is this point of view important? Who's the person's point of view? And how do we know this? What's giving it away to tell us what the point of view is? In your 5th or 6th slides, you're moving along, okay? I want you to talk about the characters. I say 5th or 6th. It depends on how many characters. I think in popular mechanics, there's only 2, and then the baby. Yeah, obviously the baby's a character. You'd have to put that in there. So popular mechanics only has 3. Some of them might have more than that. In fact, I'm trying to think if Pet Milk it only has 3. Yeah, and then Hills Like White Elephants 2, plus the lady bringing out the beers. Like, there's really not a lot of characters. So I give you a little bit of room on their 5th and 6th slides. Our point here is, who are the characters? What do they look like? What details give away who they are as people? Remember Jig, she's a little bit demure, but also kind of like maybe a little bit more progressive. They're both touring. Like, what's going on here that tells us, more about these characters? So what are the details here? And then you can draw pictures if you want. Anything that's going to show me your understanding of what the characters look like. I just want your interpretation. I don't give a flippity flap about what anyone else says, just you. So please give me your interpretation of what you're seeing, and always pull from the story to show me what helped give it away. Okay. For around slide 7, here, I want you to show me that story arc. Remember the story arc looked like... Oh, I'm about to lose some books here. Hold on. Ta-da! Yeah, that's right. Okay. Story arc. Remember, we have the beginning. We have some sort of conflict. Comes up to either a climax, then down to this resolution. What I want you to do here is, you can draw this if you want, and then you can just scan it and put it in your PowerPoint. You can draw it, like if you do computer drawing, you could do that too. Or each do bullet points. Just tell me what it is. It's really up to you how creative you want to get. No more or less, like, it's really a preference. Like for me, I like drawing, so I'd probably draw and scan it, just because I like that. But if you're going to do the story arc, what I need you to include here is, we've already done the character and the setting and kind of the development here. But what I need you to tell me is, what's the conflict? Because you just went through and told me who the characters are. Now you need to start to tell me pretty much the plot. This is what the plot is. You're going to tell me, what's our conflict here, right? You do conflict with colon and then give me a quick, understanding of that. It's going to be a little bit harder with like Pet Milk or Prue. They're a little bit more elevated when it comes to talking about them. So again, if you need multiple slides to walk through it, absolutely do. Like, the more the merrier. I'm not going to hold you back from that. Again, and then climax is usually like, what's the turning point, what happened, what was the thing. Not always do you have this long resolution. Sometimes it's short. Sometimes it might not feel like there's a resolution, but the resolution or the climax is usually, how does the character change? Like in Prue, like from one, or politics actually is a good one. How did she go from who she was starting the story, and did she change at all? And what showed us the change, or what didn't show us the change? Like, what, you got to tell me what the story is saying. Politics is a really tough one because there's subtleties to it, but you have to tell me what the subtlety is to show me this climax and this resolution. Okay, or just the plot itself. What does the plot look like? What was the intent behind it, right? Give me information on how that looks for this particular story. And it's tough because, again, you're going to read some of these stories and go, oh, I don't see a climax, I don't see any of this. That is the subtleties in which short stories are written. Again, I think Pet Milk kind of feels the same way. It's like, oh my goodness, what was that climax? What was that, resolution? I don't know. It takes a little bit of maneuvering. You have to kind of keep reading it and you'll feel your way to that and go, oh, it's not always extreme. Sometimes you're just like, that was it, but I don't understand. It's the resolution. What's the final, will they or won't they? That's what I want you to tell me. Will they or won't they? Or did they? Did they in the end? Okay, so this is a little bit elevated, but I know that you've read stories before, and if for some reason you're struggling, you're free to try another one. I would always suggest trying to push yourself. Majority of the stories are very obvious. Some of them are a little more subtle. So if you're feeling frustrated, honestly, it's hard to go wrong if you're using the story to validate your points. Like the second you're like, oh, this is how I know it was a turning point in politics because, this is what she did later on. And this is how I knew her attitude changed, right? Why write a story if there isn't a change in some way, right? That's the whole point of the story, is to show will they or won't they, and then what they do. Each story has one. Some are a little bit more subtle than others. So just keep that in mind. Again, you can draw, you can do bullet points, however you want to express your understanding of either the story arc or the plot itself. The reason why I kind of like pull away a little bit from the plot is my fear is you won't look as hard for that turning point. And that's the part that I want you to look for, is like, what was the turning point for these characters? Which is important to why I have you describe them first. Okay. All right. Once you kind of give us that, story arc, not kinda, you do it. Once you give us a story arc and that plot, next I want you to help us understand what the style and the language of the story is. Using examples from the story, show me what that style is. Show me what that language is. Again, anytime we talk about blanking on, what is that? Snow, where is it? Powder. In Powder, we know that the language is very, I guess you would say, not succinct, but very clear, not very lyrical. It's just a very, like, you're sitting there and someone's just telling you a story as is, versus probably Symphony, which gives us a little bit more like you know, sensory type of dialogue. So it's kind of hard because you would need to tell me what you're seeing as the style and the language based on the, you know, the dialogues that you're reading or the type of language that they're using. I don't want to give it all away, but you're going to tell me. And again, if you scroll down in our weekly lecture, you're going to see everything there that shows you all about different types of language and style, which is going to help you. So again, what are you seeing that's helping you understand the style? I always bring up Toni Morrison because she's one of the most lyrical writers I've ever read. So she would be, again, very lyrical, very image abstract kind of driven versus, you know, the Powder. Oh my God, he's one of my favorite authors. Why is his name blanking in my brainsies? Let me see. Tobias Wolff. Oh my God. So embarrassed. Okay, in Tobias Wolff, he's very succinct. Same with Raymond Carver. Same thing, very succinct. Kind of says the thing. Raymond Carver is even more so than Tobias Wolff. Tobias Wolff would be like we're sitting at a campfire, you know, kind of dialogue. Anyway, you tell me based on the story how you're seeing both the language and the style, and how they're writing. As we keep going, we're going to lean more toward, you know, maybe we're in slide 9, maybe 10. You know, we're kind of getting there. I'm just giving you kind of a rough idea of what I'm looking for here. Slide 9, we're looking at the theme. What's the theme? Is it romantic? Is it drama? Is it, you know, political? Like, what is it telling you? What's the theme here? This one's a little bit harder for some of these stories because they aren't that evident. You're going to have to tell me based on, again, using examples from the story, how are you telling what the theme is based on what is written there? Okay. Let's see here. We have the theme. And then again, make sure you include your historical and cultural influences. When it was written, how was that influencing the story in the sense of what historically or culturally was going on around that time? Do you think that there was an influence? And you could very much say, I'll be honest, at this time, based on what was going on historically, I don't know how it applies. Or you say, oh, definitely applied. Not always do authors include the historical aspect of what is going on into their story. Like Powder, I mean, it would take me some time to do research to see, is there historical influence? Potentially maybe cultural, right? What's the cultural, you know, relationship between him and his father? You know, maybe there's some personal context. So you tell me the context in which it was written. Do you feel there was some kind of influence? You could just tell me what was going on at that time and whether or not you feel there was an influence. And this is kind of hard, right? Not always is everything around us the influence of why we write stories. Sometimes it's just a story we want to write because it's in us. So you tell me, and then you go from there. And then your last slide is going to be your works cited. If there's anything here that you, whether it was an image or any kind of historical, any kind of research you've done, please make sure. You might have to even research, you know, the year in which the story was written, because I don't think they all say it. Some of them I don't think say it. Anyway, whatever. Just make sure you cite your sources. And I think that's pretty much it. Pretty easy. I want you just to show me your understanding of the reading. I'm not going to be grading this like aggressively, like you've probably seen me in the past with other things. This is more of us. We're taking a breather with all the things that go. And I know every time you see analytical review, you're probably like me, where you get a little sweaty in the neck. I just want you to really have more fun with this than anything. That's kind of the goal. And that's why I try and make it as easy as possible. I love these stories, and I want you to really enjoy the stories and share what you learn from the stories. And again, the reason why just having a little bit of research there is just to make sure you're just not talking out of your ass. You know, that happens. I've done it. So just back up your points, use the reading, and that's pretty much it. So hopefully you have fun with this, because I'm actually really excited about these stories, and I'd love to see what you come up with too. So good luck, have fun.